Welcome to Evil Done Badly, the worst true crime podcast on the internet. This is a special episode, being it is our 10th episode. Just think, only a couple of months ago we had no episodes and no listeners. Now we've got 10 episodes and still no listeners. Yay! In honor of this momentous occasion, grab yourself an extra tasty beverage and enjoy these random noises. This is a super special episode, not only because it's the 10th episode, but because a friend of the podcast suggested this week's evil cunt. My friend Gerard from the Wide World of Paranormal Investigations group on Facebook, which you should join if you haven't already, has suggested we cover a cunt from a couple of provinces over. This cunt is from New Brunswick, Canada, and was known as the Monster of the Miramichi, named after the river, while he was committing his heinous crimes. This episode is about an asshole who left multiple casualties in his wake during a bloody rampage in the late 1980s. So settle in, relax, finish your beverage, go get another beverage, and enjoy this incompetent discussion of the cunt named Allan Legere. And if you want to know what this guy looks like, you can just picture Ron Jeremy with glasses, and you'll have a pretty good idea how sexy this ugly fucker actually is. This episode is brought to you by Bernie's Ultimate Butt Plug Lube. It's guaranteed to get it in there. Getting it out is your problem. Now back to the show. Allan Legere is not only a cunt, but he is a cunt who was arrested, escaped from jail, and then continued to be an even bigger cunt after this cunt went and got out. Oh shit! I set off the cunt alarm. I didn't think that was possible, but I guess I've said cunt too many times already on this episode. I'll try and cut back on the cunts from here. So, let's get going. Anyway, there's very little information available about this cunt's childhood. It doesn't seem like it was a great upbringing, but no one could have foreseen the atrocities he would go on to commit. Really, all we know is that at some point in his life, he was a used car salesman from New Brunswick. Why is there very little information about his history? Probably because he was a used car salesman from New Brunswick. Not exactly the most notable of backstories, is it? His story does get a bit more memorable, however. On June 21st of 1986, Legere and two other assholes went into a convenience store in Black River Bridge, New Brunswick. They cut the power with the intention of robbing the elderly storekeepers, John and Mary Glendenning. Not content with robbing these poor people, they beat John to death and raped and beat Mary viciously and left her to die. Mary would regain consciousness and courageously crawl her way upstairs to call 911. Mary would recover, and the three suspects would be apprehended soon after. All three would be found guilty of second-degree murder, and Legere would be sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 18 years. In 1989, Legere would file an appeal in hopes of reducing the severity of his sentence. Now, he beat and raped old people, so I don't think 18 years is all that unreasonable. But he's got nothing to lose at this point, so he goes ahead and he files it anyways. On May 3rd, 1989, Legere would be taken to hospital in Moncton because of an ear infection. We wouldn't want him to be uncomfortable, would we? No. Stupid cunt. He would pretend to go to the bathroom to relieve himself. But what he was really doing was relieving his anus of the sharpened TV antenna that he had hidden up his bum. He used this unsanitary antenna object to dismantle his handcuffs. He then took his guards by surprise and escaped from the hospital by taking a hostage, wielding his antenna the whole time, and carjacking her vehicle. The hostage would be released as Legere took off in her car. This nut job would go on to be on the lam for the next 7 months. In those following months, fear, understandably, would grip the communities in and around the Miramichi River, as Legere would evade capture and rack up 4 more murders. People were afraid to live alone, so people were going and moving in with each other. People that probably couldn't stand each other, but they were moving in there to, give themselves some sort of security. Gun sales went through the roof, and rewards started to be offered for information that would lead to the arrest of Legere. The rewards started at about $2,000 and eventually moved their way up to $50,000 as Legere's crime spree worsened. On May 29th, shopkeeper Annie Flam and her sister Nina are beaten in their home in Chatham, New Brunswick. Annie would succumb to her injuries, and Nina would be raped in the process. Legere would set fire to the house as he escaped in an effort to hide the evidence. Fortunately, Nina would be rescued before the house was destroyed. As an amusing aside here, the appeal of his previous conviction would fail because he couldn't appeal anything if he was unlawfully at large when it came around. He was not helping his case here. It's a bad look to be on a crime spree when you're looking for leniency for previous crimes. So that didn't work out so well. Legere managed to lay low for a couple of months and then would resurface in the home of 2 more sisters. This time, Donna and Linda Daphne were the unfortunate recipients of Legere's company. He broke into their home and raped and murdered both of them. Both were beaten to death, and their house was also set on fire. If the fire was meant to conceal the evidence, I think it's safe to say at this point that there was no question as to which cunt was perpetrating these vicious crimes. I don't think he was going to throw him off the scent that easy. Legere's last known murder would take place at the Blessed Virgin Mary Church in Chatham Hill. Roman Catholic priest James Smith was found beaten to death in the rectory on November 16, 1989. Legere robbed the safe of valuables and absconded with Smith's car. Slippery as he was, Legere could not evade capture forever. On November 24th, after multiple carjackings, he tried to escape back to Moncton. The police had a blockade set up along his route, and when he was stopped, he was arrested without resistance. I do believe the officers in question may have not been that gentle with him, though. At least, I like to think that they weren't very gentle when they were arresting him. I think they probably got in a poke or two. As a result of Legere's arrest, multiple 50K rewards were paid to civilians for information that led to his arrest. To me, that's money very well spent. If the government was giving out sensible rewards to people who catch criminals all the time, we'd all be suiting up, going out in the night, dressed like Batman, and dishing out some street justice. Or we'd get our asses kicked, which is well worth it for 50 grand. Either way, here you go, government. Get cracking and set up some sort of incentive program for us to beat up scumbags. I'd be down for that. I've played enough Mortal Kombat in my time to know how to handle myself. For his reign of terror, Legere would be severely punished. He was sentenced to be ass-raped with a television antenna by Ron Jeremy for all of eternity. The New Brunswick justice system does not fuck around. Or at least, that's how I figure it should go down. It's probably not accurate. In August of 1990, Legere would be sentenced to an additional 9 years incarceration for escaping. He would be found guilty of the other 4 murders and receive life sentences for each. He last had a day parole hearing in 2021, where he was told to eat a dick and go back to his cell where he resides today at the maximum security Edmonton Institution in Alberta. Apart from the pure evil that is Allan Legere, this case is notable for at least one other reason. It's the first time DNA profiling was used to convict someone in Canada. It had been used previously to exonerate people, but never to put someone away. I mean, we take it for granted these days, and everyone knows that you shouldn't leave your jizz at a crime scene. But I guess back in the 80s, people thought you could just leave your spooge all over the walls and still get away scot-free, but those days are long gone. Allan Legere did not get away scot-free. It took a while, but they eventually brought him to justice. But not before 5 unfortunate souls lost their lives at the hands of this monster. And this fucker's still alive somewhere. I hope he's getting what's coming to him right about now. And there you have it. This concludes the 10th episode of Evil Done Badly, the worst true crime podcast on the internet. I hope you enjoyed this joyous celebration of our incompetence. And just let me say, Allan Legere, what a cunt. And now it's time for listener questions. Dippy Taint Razor asks, there's 8 billion people on the planet. How does it feel to know that exactly 0 of them are listening to your podcast? Well, it's kind of comforting knowing that I'm being ignored by people all over the planet. It takes a special kind of talent to be this irrelevant. I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but not everyone has the gumption to remain so insignificant and keep on going. It's what gets me up in the morning. Gertie Grumble Bunny asks, what equipment to use to make a podcast? Are you, recording it on a toy potato? I'm glad you asked. I use my cell phone to record and edit. It's a Motorola Dynatac 8000. I just recently upgraded from the Dynatac 7000, and I'm so glad that I did. I should have done this months ago. As far as a mic goes, I use whatever the dollar store on the corner has in stock. I'd tell you the name of it, but it doesn't have English on the packaging. And that'll do it for this episode. If you would like to suggest future topics, you can reach me on Instagram at evildonebadly or by email at evildonebadly@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to join the wide world of paranormal investigations on Facebook. It's way more interesting than this podcast. Adios!